So our microphones are very, require you to speak directly into them. And a little louder. You'll have to go all so, but we keep them off.
The kids live right here in Cloverfield? Yeah. I know where Tillamook is, just west of Fairview Range. There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready to kick off AAUW and the Tillamook Headlight Herald's Joint Candidates Forum for 2016. If you have questions that come up, feel free to go get note cards and pens, raise the cards, someone will come get them. I'm going to pass the mic, so to speak, to Lori Gates, AAUW's president.
All right, thank you. First, I want to thank Lisa and the Headlight Herald for organizing things on behalf of AAUW and the Headlight Herald, and we're pleased to hold what has kind of become an annual or semi-annual event for Tillamook County. And AAUW is founded and has as its mission empowering and helping girls and women achieve in areas of education and health, research, and other areas. We have a whole lot of pamphlets on various aspects of the organization out in the lobby there, if you'd like to take a look. And we always welcome new members, male or female, with at least a 2-year degree. And also, I wanted to let folks know that we have a membership event coming up on November 6th, which is a Sunday, should be, from 2 to 4 at Art Space in Bay City. And again, if anyone's interested, I think most of our members have pins or tags around, and anyone would be glad to get your information or make sure you get more information on that event as we get those invitations out.
And next we'll have Joe Warren, the publisher for the Headlight Herald.
I just wrecked the live stream. Thanks for coming. I'm just going to say thanks and get out of here real quick, and thank you to AAUW. I always say this, they bring the best food, but we got a lot of business to take care of tonight, and thanks for traveling so far and coming here to our fine city to let your constituents know what you stand for. But just when we look for a couple events to get involved in, I started thinking political forums, and then I was informed that AAUW already does this, so I called Lisa up and said, can we help you on this? And she said yes, so it's our second one that we've been co-hosting, and I think they've been informative. Tomorrow we'll have it up on our website, and entire video if you want to go back and review it. It's live streaming now on the Chamber's Facebook page and linked through our page as well. So you guys don't need to know that because you're here live, but if you want to go back and visit it tomorrow, we'll have it. So thanks for coming and enjoy the evening.
Did you hear me say that? Oh, goodness. I'm going to have to keep all my editorial comments to myself. Just kidding. So I'd like to thank everybody here. This is a great turnout. We have a lot of media happening here today. We've got a live stream on Facebook thanks to the Chamber and the Headlight Herald. Coast Radio is here, KTCB 89.5. They're listening to it now, and it will be put into a podcast, so available for folks to go to their website and listen. So we've got the Headlight Herald here. So this is really good. I'm sorry, I got distracted for a moment. So this is really great, and a lot of opportunities to get the word out, and then having such a great presence here this evening. This is really exciting. So we're doing it a little bit different. If you've been with us in years past, we tend to have all the candidates up here and we just sort of randomly ask questions that are directed towards each of the positions. But this year, given sort of the makeup, it just felt a little bit better and cleaner and a little more easier to focus on each of these positions and give them their due attention. Folks have come from a long way and put in a lot of time to campaign, and so we want to honor their efforts through these kind of processes. And so the evening's processes will start with our candidates up here tonight. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to present their platforms, a little bit about themselves, whatever they feel is necessary for you to make the best decisions about voting for them. We will then go into the questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions. This forces them to be concise. And then there will be a 2-minute wrap-up, sort of that last opportunity to make that pitch to you. Then we'll have about a 10-minute break, and then we will move into the county commissioner race, and the same format will apply. And so we have a couple folks that were unable to make it tonight that we received feedback from. Thomas Donahue, who is running with Representative David Gomberg for District 10. He is unable to make it. He had prior family commitments. And Senator Arnie Robland had planned on being here this evening. He had a medical emergency, and we want him to be healthy and happy, so he is not here this evening. Commissioner Mark Labhart is going to present some comments that he provided for us. And then Rosie Shatkin, I call her as Chief of Staff, which she's told me she doesn't like to be called, but that's what we're going to call her this evening. She will be available to answer questions, particularly during that break. So I would take advantage of that opportunity if you have some concerns or comments that you'd like her to hear about. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with Representative Gomberg running for District 10.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Have I got the microphone close enough?
Yep.
We're good right in there? All right, well, I like to speak standing up, but these microphones have got us a little more constrained to the tables. So I'm David Gomberg from House District 10, and I wanted to tell you that my district ranges from Yachats all the way to 3rd Street here in Tillamook. So I wanted to particularly welcome Dr. Bobick and Representative Boone to my district, which starts about 100 feet over that way. I also go inland as far as Sheridan. I live in Otis, in Lincoln County, but within sight of Tillamook County. My wife Susan and I have owned a business there for the past 30 years. So I'm so pleased to see all of you here tonight. I'm pleased that people are listening in. I appreciate the paper and the other organizations that are involved in presenting this tonight, because elections are all about choices. And forums like this are such a critical part of that process. We're not all going to agree with each other tonight, but honest people can disagree about often complex issues. I think one thing we can agree about is that we live in a very, very special place. We live in a place that is rich with natural beauty and filled with remarkable economic potential. And as I move around this district, I see people that are starting businesses and using little more than their creativity, their experience, and their raw economic courage to try and make something out of nothing and provide opportunities for their families and the people that will work for them in the future. I see families that are starting out, and they're raising kids, and they're looking forward to the future, and they're wondering about the future that their kids will have in this special place that we live. And I see seniors. I see seniors that have a lifetime of experience and now have some new opportunities of their own, kind of opening a new chapter, a new adventure, as they have more time to invest in their communities. And all of those people are working together to try and make our part of Oregon stronger and safer and more resilient. My job as a state representative is to empower that can-do attitude. So if I return to Salem next year, my priorities are going to remain pretty much what they've been in the past: to focus on education and give our kids and our grandkids the education they deserve and full opportunities for the future. I'm going to be working to try and ensure that our seniors, our retirees, are safe and secure and able to remain in their own homes as long as possible. I'm going to be looking for jobs, not just more jobs, but better jobs, so that people have good reason to stick around after they've completed their first job. I'm going to be looking to preserve that environment that's so very special here, improve our transportation network, which is a critically important issue for next session, and finally to look over the horizon and better prepare us for when the ground starts shaking under our feet and make sure that we're in the best possible position to address that major natural event that at some point in the future is going to occur. Now, talking about those things in 3 or 4 minutes is going to be very difficult, so let me say this. For those of you that live south of 3rd Street, most of you have seen me before, and I will tell you that I show up here with annoying frequency. I will also say that that's equally true of Waldport and Toledo and Newport and Sheridan, because I think it's important to show up. I think it's important to be accessible and available and to spend as much time listening as I do talking. In all candor, this job of mine as a state representative is not where I expected to be at this point in my life, but it's the hardest work I've ever done. It's also the most rewarding work that I've ever done. And it's such a great honor to represent all of you in Salem. I look forward to your decision and the opportunity to go back and continue doing that. Thank you.
Representative Debbie Boone with District 32.
And thank you, Lisa. And David just gave my speech, so I'm not much sure what more I can say. Thank you to the AAUW and TBCC and the Headlight Herald for sponsoring this candidates forum tonight. I've lived and worked in Clatsop County since 1974. I moved here right after I got married, and we started our construction business about that same time. My kids attended seaside schools, played soccer, rode horses, joined 4-H, hunted and fished, and my family has gone through the same up and down, economic up and down as everybody else has over these years. I've served on my rural fire district's medical team for 16 years. I'm no longer doing that. Right now what I say I do best is hold hands and set flares. So you'll see me on some calls if I'm in the area doing just that, and usually in a dress, so it's not always, the chief never likes that. He likes people to wear their turnouts. In 2001, a constituent asked me to introduce a bill requiring a statewide resilience plan. I'd never heard of that. I had heard of the Cascadia event, I'd heard of the tsunami, etc., for about 9 years now, but I'd never considered a statewide plan. And so when he did that, we introduced the Oregon Resilience Plan, which is basically a long-term guide to prepare us for the Cascadia event. And now, 5 years later, we're continuing to seismically retrofit our schools, hospitals, fire stations, and other public buildings so they'll be safe refuges when the big one strikes. I've also worked on several other programs to keep our communities safe, including strengthening protections for victims of domestic violence. And by the way, Oregon is probably one of the worst states, if not the worst, for domestic violence right now for women, which is a very sad stat. Child abuse and neglect, I've worked since the 70s on that, on prevention, and on human trafficking. This work has also enabled me to earn the respect and the endorsement of the law enforcement sector. And now I've worked with the Oregon Military Department to help Camp Rylea, which is in my district, achieve their goal of net zero and 100% renewable energy. Because they're going to be an evacuation center, a relocation center during any kind of emergency, not just the Cascadia. I continue to be a tireless advocate for the 330,000 veterans working to ensure that they receive the benefits they have earned and deserve for their service to our country. I'm working with our coastal community colleges, OIT, Oregon Institute of Technology, and OSU to develop a curriculum for technicians who will become a workforce for designing, manufacturing, and maintaining the infrastructure for renewable energy projects and other mechanical engineering project opportunities. It will also draw from the tech and vocational programs in the high schools to provide a seamless transfer from high school to college to career. We sort of dubbed it a mini-me, mini-ME for mechanical engineering, but the engineers did not appreciate that. We're still looking for a name. I've worked hard to protect Oregon Project Independence. It's a popular program for our seniors and people with disabilities that allows them to live independently in their own homes if they choose to do so. And I took a leadership role in supporting our coastal economy by sponsoring the Seafood Marketing Initiative that promotes Oregon seafood to the rest of the nation. and passing the bycatch bill that allows non-targeted fish species to be donated to Oregon's food banks and not thrown overboard as it was in the past. I'm part of the Coastal Caucus, which was successful in procuring millions of dollars to dredge our small ports, which allow the continuance of commerce. We even facilitated building a small dredge for our ports. Finally, I will continue my work to complete the seafloor mapping project at OSU so we can have up-to-date tsunami modeling, updated navigational charts, and necessary marine and fisheries research. Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Bruce Bobeck, also running for District 32.
Testing.
See the red button, red light on?
You're on now.
Yep.
Now you're on.
Yeah.
Testing.
There.
There we go. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me this evening. I'm Dr. Bruce Bobeck. I'm running for District 32 Republican candidate. That encompasses all Clatsop County, North Tillamook County, and West Washington County. I'm not a politician. I'm a physician. I've been a physician for 30 years. I've been serving as a physician in Astoria for 26 years, and I am currently now the president of medical staff at Columbia Memorial Hospital. What got me into this race is all the bickering. When I look what's happening nationally, I look at Hillary Clinton's and Bernie's race, Donald Trump and all the other Republicans. I just said there's got to be a better way. We cannot throw barbs at each other. We as a population have very common goals. We want our kids to have good schools. We want to have them be safe. We want to give our police all that they need, and we can do this as a community. We don't need to throw barbs at each other. We need to work with each other. One of the things I've done over a number of years, I was a city commissioner in Warrenton in the 90s, and started the Ward Community Library there. In the 2000 era, I was president of the Warrenton High School Scholarship Association, and was that for several years. I was also president of the Columbia Pacific IPA, and with Betsy Johnson, we made Astoria a healthcare provider shortage area, which allowed more physicians to have access, more patients have access to physicians. I'm very grateful to you. I've had wonderful 41 years of a wonderful wife that's sitting in the back there, and I've had 5 kids, 6 grandchildren, and all my 5 children, I've been fortunate to have gone through all the school systems here. I have 2 of my daughters have doctorate degrees. One of my sons have a doctorate degree, and I had 3 go through U of O, 1 go to Oregon State, and 1 go to Southern. So, and went through all the graduate schools. So I'm well aware. My platform is basically education and healthcare. One of the things that, let's talk about healthcare first. Healthcare, as you know, the ACO is something that's been to try the last couple of years, and it's not working. At the end of this year, the state legislature is going to run out of federal funding, and we're going to be $300 million in the red. And we need to do something about healthcare. So I'm a big proponent of a 3-step process: having a birth to death healthcare savings account, having a high deductible insurance, and having an umbrella so nobody in this state goes bankrupt from healthcare. And I think the state should be able to do that. For education, we need stable funding for children. We need to have dual tracking whereby kids can obtain college credits while they're in high school. And in Washington, I just talked to several of the professors at other community colleges. They've had kids come by and have an associate's degree the next day after graduating high school. and that will save people a lot of time. I'm sorry I don't have more time to explain to you other things. Maybe we'll get into questions. Thank you.
Next, we have for District 5 State Senate race, Dick Anderson.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to all the sponsors of tonight's event. It takes a lot of work, and I certainly appreciate the audience. My name is Dick Anderson, and I'm the Independent Party and the Republican Party candidate for State Senate. Some of you may even know me as the former mayor of Lincoln City. As that mayor, I'm become very frustrated with our politicians in Salem for ignoring our coastal issues and needs, perhaps as you have. My areas of focus when talking to them have been to assist with us the diversification of our economy on the coast, our public education system, which is broken and underfunded, and with a direct correlation of how tough it is for our own communities with a school system that isn't working, our limited access to health care, and then our infrastructure, our roads and bridges that are crumbling around us. I know we can do better in those areas. Let's just look at public education. As I indicated, underfunded and not working. Oregon spends roughly 10.5% of its state budget on K through 12 education. And that's been declining over time, every year. While the state of Washington is 22%. So that just gives you an indication of the difference between at least those two states. The results shouldn't be a surprise to you. Dropouts are increasing, graduation rates are decreasing, and Oregon's overall quality of education is ranked 38th in the country. Now, that's embarrassing, difficult to stomach, but what's even worse is we're worse than Alabama and Mississippi. And I can poke at those because I've got a brother in Alabama, so he reminds me. And so, we need to do better. That's clearly not the direction we want to go. And, certainly by making it the priority through our actions is one way, and that is by funding schools first would be a good start. I'm going to ask for your support this evening at the end, your support and your vote. So I look forward to hearing from you with your questions. Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Commissioner Mark Labhart, who will be speaking from some prepared statements from Senator Arnie Roeblen.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Lori, thank you. Joe, thanks for hosting, and I think we need to thank Connie Green for having us here at the community college and hosting us, so thank you, Connie, for that. I'm going to just talk a little bit. Senator Roeblen would really have liked to have been here tonight. I'm going to be a little bit more gross than Lisa was. He got an infection from a hip surgery operation, and it was a severe infection that required him to go back to OHSU. He is laid up for like 8 weeks with this severe bone infection, so he needs to be in our thoughts and prayers. So I'm not going to be able to answer questions for Senator Roeblen tonight because I don't feel that I can answer questions for him and speak for him. So he's asked me to read a prepared speech. I apologize for reading this, but Lisa's told me because I don't have to answer questions, I can get a little bit longer than 4 minutes. So I'll just go ahead and read this. Again, I apologize for that. It says, "Greetings, Commissioner Labhart. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to read the following on my behalf. Since I am unable to attend the AAUW and Headlight Herald Forum, I am hoping that you can read the following prepared statement. As a lifelong coastal resident, my wife Arlene and I have spent the last 42 years on the Oregon coast, where we've raised our 3 children. I'm very grateful for the trust and confidence placed in me by the voters of Senate District 5, which goes from Coos Bay to Oceanside. I'm also humbled by the privilege accorded me in representing the citizens of the south portion of Tillamook County in the Oregon Senate. Please never doubt that I am committed to working with you and our local officials in advancing the best interests of Tillamook County. I served as a math educator, dean of the students, and principal at Marshfield High School in Coos Bay. In 2004, I retired, but later, encouraged by a former senator and mayor of Coos Bay to run for the Oregon House of Representatives. In 2010, I became the co-speaker of the Oregon House of Representatives. That is a very, very powerful position, a very strong leadership position. And I've worked collaboratively with my Republican colleague, Bruce Hanna of Roseburg, who was the other co-speaker. I made a promise then to work with each and every one of my colleagues to help create a better Oregon. In 2011, I was named Statesman of the Year by the Oregon Business Association for my achievements in public service, consensus building, and forging collaborative solutions to critical issues facing Oregon. The Oregon Business Association is the state's most respected advocate of long-term enhancement of Oregon's business climate and continued economic competitiveness. They recently endorsed me for my candidacy as a senator. In 2012, I was honored with the Public Officials of the Year Award from the National Governing Magazine. I assure you, my commitment to the Oregon coastal community long precedes my election to public office. I'm a founding board member of the Friends and New Sustainable Industry, served on the boards of several local organizations, including the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board, Coos Educators Federal Credit Union, YMCA Youth in Government, and the Oregon Coastal Environment Network called OCEAN. I also have served on boards of numerous organizations, including the Southwest Oregon Transportation and Economic Development Work Group, Oregon Education Accountability Roundtable, the Governance Group and Capital Restoration Project, and the Coastal Caucus and the Chalkboard Project. Despite the challenges to co-governance in 2012, I was able to achieve legislative success on issues that matter to all Oregonians, in particular those in our rural and coastal regions. Examples include passage of the Oregon Investment Act, Oregon Credit Enhancement Act, and expansion of the economic development enterprise zones throughout the state. Passage of legislation to protect seniors, Social Security funds from garnishment. Passage of the Early Learning Council to move Oregon further down the road on important efforts to educate the next generation of critical thinkers and entrepreneurs. Passage of foreclosure protection to ensure that all homeowners have access to face-to-face mediation. I continue to work with coastal communities to add more affordable housing so kids can be raised in safe homes. I've worked with former State Representative Gene Cowan to champion Project Independence and other senior programs to protect Oregonians in their golden years. But I am always looking for ways to help our coastal communities. Therefore, your ideas, your concerns, and even your complaints are an important part to the legislative process. This is how the discussions with congressional leaders to keep the Coast Guard helicopter at Newport happened and were spearheaded by our senator. This is how we created a work group to develop the long-term solution to the overall safety of Cape Kiwanda and look for ways to improve the visitor's knowledge of the fencing and the signs. Your concerns help my work by bringing county and local community leaders together with state agency and the governor's office. To this end, I have recently submitted legislation to increase fines on those who desecrate public resources in state parks. And we just had that problem happen at Cape Kiwanda, as many of you know. I've worked with state and national leaders to develop the Shellfish Initiative and the Ocean Acidification Working Group by working with Mark Weigart at the Netarts Oyster Farm and OSU. For these efforts, I will be the incoming president of what we call PNWAR, or the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, which is a nonprofit organization working to increase the economic well-being and quality of life for all of our citizens in Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Washington, and the Canadian provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon Northwest Territories. I was instrumental in helping you advocate for matching state funds to build the new court facilities at your courthouse, and we got the funding. I worked with Commissioner Mark Labhart, who played a key role in helping to pass Senate Bill 1517, which allows our farmers to have a say in wetland restoration projects that directly affect their farming operations. Through my collaborative work with Commissioner Labhart, we were able to implement House Bill 2402, which is looking for long-term sustainable funding for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, while at the same time reducing the potential increased fishing and hunting license fees. And for many of our schools in Tillamook, and through the collaborative work with Commissioner Labhart and Senator Betsy Johnson, we were able to secure 100% state bonding funding for seismic resiliency in the Nestucca Elementary School building. We need to continue this for the rest of our schools in Tillamook County. Thank you again for speaking on my behalf. I wish I could have been there tonight. Sincerely, Senator Archibald. Thank you.
I think Rosie should go sit in that chair and take questions.
I think Rosie would punch me if I made
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move into the question piece. Some of them are specific to some of the candidates, but they really all have applicability across each of the positions. So what I'll probably do is direct it initially if it's been identified to one of you, and then allow the others to take an opportunity to answer it if you feel that it's appropriate for you or that you have a position on the matter, okay? So we're going to try and get through as many of these as possible. So think about that as you're moving through your responses. Concise, concise, concise. We will cut you off. I have no shame in that. So let's start with the hardest one. They're all hard. None of these are going to be fun. I just need you to know that right now. Okay, so because this is for everybody, I will just simply start with Mr. Anderson. We'll work our way down. The second part of this question, we'll start with Dr. Bobeck, and then we'll just keep going, okay? So this question is, what is your position, on Measure 97? 1 minute.
Measure 97, I'm actually for voting against Measure 97. It is not it's not our answer to filling the needs of all the areas that are going to need funding in this next budget cycle. We've, as you know, Oregonians have turned down sales taxes some 9 times. They'll turn this one down as well. It's not to say we should be against a sales tax, but without bringing in the other forms of revenue, property taxes and income taxes, standing alone, this is not the answer, and it's a bad piece of legislation.
I'm totally against Measure 97. We have right now, if we look at our all funds budget, 16% of our all funds budget goes to administration. Only 10.4% goes to schools. So we spend more on administration in this legislature than we do on our kids. I think that's wrong. I think that needs to be switched around. Social Security, as a big entity, uses 2% as administrative costs. I think 16% is way too high. I represent a lot of senior citizens that spend $3 to $5 on senior meals. I anticipate that it's going to cost every Oregonian $600. That's a lot of meals that my seniors can't afford.
I too have a lot of concerns about this, and I guess one of my main concerns, excuse me, is that in the actual ballot measure, of which all of us just have one vote, so I really can't, make a big difference there. But it says that this money should go toward, I think it was education and senior services and something else. But it doesn't say it must, and it's not designed to. It's really hard to get a funding source that's designed specifically, because I remember when the Legislative Ways and Means Committee some years ago swept a fund or took money out of the 911 funds, which was terrible because then they have to start over again. Did the same with the Cultural Trust. So I'm concerned about how it would be used in that sense. And the other, I guess my final thing, that's the sort of thing, doing tax reform by ballot measure really isn't the correct way to go about it. I think it should be the legislature's job to do that. We just have to do it.
Well, I'd certainly support comprehensive tax reform in the legislature, but the supermajority rule makes that almost impossible, and we end up with ballot measures like this one. This measure would place a 2.5% tax on corporations that do more than $25 million of business in the state of Oregon. It's going to affect less than 1% of the corporations in this state, and 80% of the corporations it does affect are based outside of Oregon. So the question for all of us is, how is this going to affect what you and I pay for products on a day-to-day basis? And the question I would ask is this. We currently have the lowest corporate tax in the country, and if our taxes are currently lower than other states, why aren't our prices lower than other states if it's simply going to be based on whether taxes increase your prices or not? Let me frame that another way for all of you. If they're simply going to pass all these costs along to you and me, why are they spending $14 million to convince us to vote against it? We've got a problem with our schools in this state, and we could spend an hour talking about this measure, but I'm going to oversimplify things. We can settle for lousy schools, we can gut our other state programs, we can increase substantially our income tax, or we can ask Oregon's largest businesses to pay their fair share as well. This measure is supported by the League of Women Voters, the Commission on Ballot Review, is supported by Governors Roberts, Kulongoski, and Brown, and it's supported by me.
Thank you. Because that was an easy one, we'll start with the next one, which is, what is your position on Measure 98? Yes, sir. I'm so sorry. Dr. Bobek.
Okay. Measure 98, as you know, allows a certain amount of percentage to go to vocational training. I am all for vocational training, but I am not for state-directed vocational training. I believe that absolutely, especially like in Astoria where our vocational training was moved to Washington County, that we definitely need more vocational training. What we also need is, we need to have some type of mentorship to follow students through the schools. Trying to get kids to graduate at a higher rate is going to be a multidisciplinary thing. We need money, we need mentors, we need other programs, and we need to ask the kids what they want. Thank you.
And I have to say, I agree with that. The mentoring part especially, that's so valuable to kids. And especially people in our communities who have the skills and have the experience and could spend, an hour a week at that, like Smart Reading program. But getting back to Measure 98, I do support it. I think that anything that money does go directly to schools, and I think it's something, I'm gonna make something up, but I think I heard this, $800 per student. Is that? Okay. And it's a start. Last session, we gave $7 billion to K through 12, and that's the most money we've ever given school budgets ever in the legislature. It's always not enough because the quality ed model is always a little bit ahead of it. We don't quite ever get there. But I do support that, Measure 98. And I hope you're going to ask about Measure 96 too later. I had 5 seconds.
You didn't? No, that was good. Representative Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, Measure 98 addresses not only career technical education, but also the problems of absenteeism and our abysmally low graduation rate. Those are all worthy goals. Those are important and critical goals. I don't really like the idea of budgeting by initiative, but I think that these are important concepts that we need to move forward on. And yes, it would allocate another $800 per student in advancement of those goals. So if you're going to support 98, I hope you're also going to support 97 and help us find how to pay that extra $800 per student in pursuit of those important and worthy goals.
Thank you.
And I'm real close to Representative Gomberg's answer, because I'm certainly for vocational training, and I think that's a good answer for some of the issues, results we're getting and not getting from our high school students with increasing dropout rates and not having the graduation rates. My fear, though, is It's going to take away from an already depleting pool of funds. And so I'm torn, quite honestly, because I'm a big fan of vocational training, but without a funding source, a new funding source for it, I'm not willing to take it away from that shrinking pool that's going to K through 12.
Thank you. Next up, we'll start with Representative Boone. What will you do to secure the funds needed for access to health care in rural areas 2017 and beyond?
I can only act on 2017 to 2018 or biennium. I can only do 2 years at a time. I spent the first 6 years of my terms in health services, healthcare, the different permutations of committees in the House, including the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Human Services, which did the health funding, et cetera, and for Ways and Means, and then the E-Board. And so I had all healthcare all the time, and what we end up doing is we have federal money that, oh my God, 30 seconds. We have federal money that comes in through various sources, and I know Dr. Bobak's probably smarter on this one than I am, but we have to put all those pieces together for our health budgets. But one of the biggest problems is the cost of delivering health care, and that's an issue. So I will go out on a limb here in my last 10 seconds and pimp a little bit, I guess, a terrible term, but it's been used by a senator, I know, for a single-payer health care program like Medicare, which I'm finally going to be on this month. So, thank you. You didn't stop me. So,
Well, I'm going to stop you now, yes.
Please give me the wording of the question again.
Sure can. What will you do to secure the funds needed for access to health care in rural areas from 2017 and beyond?
I support single payer as well, but let's talk about the status quo. The status quo is that because of commitments that were made to public employees years ago during the Goldschmidt and Atiyeh administrations, we're going to be looking at a $1.3 billion deficit when we go back to Salem, unless something else changes. So we're not going to be talking about increasing the amount of money we put into healthcare. We're going to be looking at some very, very difficult cuts. And our job in the rural areas is to make sure those cuts don't fall disproportionately on all of us. I think there's some good news down the road, including 2 new hospitals coming into Lincoln County, and certainly within easy drive of much of my district. But again, the challenge is going to be not how we spend more money on healthcare, but making sure that we don't make disproportionate cuts to critical programs. And by the way, in my district, 21% of our population is over the age of 65. That compares to 14% statewide. So healthcare is not just a rural concern, it's also a great concern for our unique demographics here.
And, you know, you may not know, and there's no reason why you would, but I'm elected to the North Lincoln Health District, and that's the taxing district in North Lincoln that manages the funding from property taxes towards the hospital. And also the group that just negotiated with Samaritan Health a creative way to get a new hospital in Lincoln City, and that's by swapping out the land and to selling it, in essence, to Samaritan, who in exchange is building a brand new hospital at the cost of nothing new to the taxpayers. I tell you that only because that's out of the box, different from the standard way of funding a new hospital. And that's the kind of thinking that needs to happen in Salem, is not your standard thinking about how we're going to take care of our issues.
This is a loaded question. It has a lot of answers to it. One of the things that we have to focus on is what as we as citizens want to do with our own health care. I suggest that we have our own healthcare savings account from birth till death, that it be a tax deductible account, that at age 65, if we stay healthy, it gets rolled into our retirement. It also keeps on going after 65, so that when we hit a donut hole, we have some money to put in there. What's happening in healthcare is that although tons more money are getting put into the system, it's not getting filtered to the providers. We've had a big exodus of providers in the state, and you're seeing more associate providers like nurse practitioners come into the area. We need to have stable funding. We also, I'm a big fan of having the state have an umbrella so nobody goes bankrupt from any health care here in the state. And I'm a big so I recommend that people have high deductible insurance also.
Thank you.
I have it myself.
Okay, that's quite all right. I know, I mean, these are really complicated questions, right? We all appreciate that for sure. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about something that's really risen to the forefront of a lot of folks in Tillamook County's minds. What is your solution to Tillamook County's new FEMA flood insurance regulations and policy with the injection of the National Marine Fisheries Services regulations by the federal agency not Congress, to enforce through an insurance the unrelated ESA, Endangered Species Act, and Clean Water Act, requirements never before included and not included in any other insurance policies?
I pass.
Okay.
So much of this is coming from the federal government, and what we have done, particularly within the Coastal Caucus, which I think many of you know, are those senators and representatives, Republicans and Democrats, who work together to represent and advocate for our coastal districts. We have built a remarkable relationship with our congressional delegation, so that when questions and problems and issues like this come up that need attention, we're able to pick up the phone, we're able to get people here, we're able to get them to pull on their boots and walk out and take a look at the issues that we are facing here in Tillamook County and up and down the coast. I mean, sadly, a lot of these issues can't be dealt with in Salem, and it requires federal action, but we're able to get federal attention by building collaborative relationships, close working relationships with our federal delegation.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't disagree. The FEMA flood insurance, it's by increasing the premiums and all the kind of noise revisions that have come forward over the last years, it will be devastating to the coast. So it's not just Tillamook County, it's up and down the entire coast, because our communities are older, and unfortunately we built in floodplains, and to now revise the premiums to such an extent that it'll price people out of their existing homes is just unfortunate and not the appropriate way to go.
I think what you do is fight. When I was a city commissioner, we had a wetlands plan up in Warrenton, and every year the Corps of Engineers came back with a different plan, and we tried to meet those goals, and they keep coming back with different ones. At some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand and say we don't need it anymore, and I think we need to do that.
And rounding up the end point here, starting with what David had to say, is very true. Today I was on a county forestry tour in Clatsop County and was able to have 5 minutes with Representative or Congresswoman Bonamici's staff and got my bid in for the new WERDA bill, adding invasive species to that. That's a whole nother 30 seconds, but which I won't go into right now. But that's absolutely how we do it. If it's a federal issue, we call our delegation, our representatives, our congressmen, our senators, and we all work with their staffs very well. And what you said, Dr. Boga, Warrenton had a terrible time with that, and he's absolutely right. We saw some premiums here in Tillamook County go up to actually thousands more than what the building was actually worth, and so that is unacceptable. And so working with FEMA, and Oregon was lucky to have a FEMA representative now down here before at Oregon Emergency Management, so we kind of have friends in these places, which is really helpful.
Okay, we have 3 more questions that are directed towards this. We'll see if we can get through them, because I want to make sure you have time for your wrap-up, which is also equally important.
Sorry about that. So although this is directed towards Representative Boone, I'm going to ask that all of the candidates answer if they so please. So the question is, and it might be a simple answer, can the 70-30% TRT be amended to a different ratio?
Probably in another life. We tried this a few years ago, had a big meeting, I remember in the Deb's Potts room, and you could feel the tension. It was that tough. The entities that utilize this fraction of money, if you will, argue about what they have to use. That's the way it is. We have tried it. We can try again, and because different players might get different answers. But it's basically a strongly supported and guarded. What do you call that?
Out of money.
The ratio. Thank you. Ratio. I was having a moment there for a minute. And we've tried every little bit, and we probably will try again. What is more important in some counties and some cities in the counties here is the need for more public safety. With the high influx of tourism in the summers, we need more cops, more fire people on this, on duty. So I know my 10 minutes are up.
Your 10 minutes.
Very kind of you tonight, because I'm old, that's it.
Yes, she's on.
Thanks.
Well, I certainly understand the ramifications of this question, and I floated a trial balloon last session and got a real introduction to the resistance there is to changing the 70-30 split. So if we can't change the split, if we can't change how we divide up the pie, then let's make the pie bigger. And we can do that because the environment is changing out here. The environment is changing with 1,000 vacation rentals that are now on the market in Tillamook County, 500 of them in Lincoln City also. So let's make sure they're paying their fair share into the TRT. And what about the new Airbnbs, many of which are just off the grid and not paying into the system? Let's make sure that everybody is paying their fair share into the system so we can make the pie bigger, and our 30% is going to at least be able to accomplish a little bit more. By the way, when the initial proposal came out in Tillamook County to institute a TRT, and we were one of the few counties that didn't have one, even though I live across the border, I was on record supporting that and in some of the ads that encouraged people to vote for it. It's found money, it's money other people bring into the county, we just need to find more of it.
You're talking to a former mayor of Lincoln City where 32% of its revenue comes from transit room tax. Property taxes is 37%. I know transit room tax. And one of the secrets to it is, Representative Gomberg just alluded to, you got to collect it. And again, knowing in Lincoln County where I was fortunate enough to deal with some annexation issues that was heavy with some vacation rentals, when they came into the city and came under our jurisdiction to collect, we were astounded at the amount of funds that we had not budgeted and came in simply by enforcing the rules. So what that means is the county wasn't collecting their fair share and what they wrote.
Yeah, I'm for a tourist tax, and in Astoria, where we have a lot of cruise ships and a lot of people visiting, I think it'd be very beneficial to them. I agree with them. We should increase the pie.
So we have 2 more questions. This next question this next question might feel a little uncomfortable for some folks.
Because the others were just so easy.
No, yeah, that is true. But but this one might actually feel a little uncomfortable. I try very hard not to modify the questions unless they're swear words, which I leave out, which there have been none. So, and also if it just needs a little bit of tweaking in order to make it more of a question that the folks can understand. So I'm just going to read this the way that it's written, okay? And tell folks that this is about women's health and women's reproductive rights. And the way the question is phrased, again, may be upsetting to some folks, but it's a question. Just feel like I need to put this out there. So explain how forcing women to bear unwanted babies is good for the woman's health.
Who's first?
I believe that it's Mr. Anderson.
Try the question again, if you could.
I will go out on a limb here and suggest that we're talking about choice.
Mhm.
And the question is, explain how forcing women to bear unwanted babies is good for a woman's health.
Well, I can't answer that simply because I don't have an answer. I can tell you, I think this is an area that, quite frankly, the government has no business being involved. And that's how I feel about it. I think the women's choice is her choice and her family's choice, and government shouldn't be there. It's as simple as that.
I'm for pro-life, from birth to death. I'm totally against the death penalty. I believe that women do have a choice. They know whether or not they're are ready to if having sex will produce a child or not. If they do that knowingly, I think they know the responsibility of that child. If they don't, if, for instance, rape or they have no say in it, I believe that woman should be allowed to abort that fetus. But if they have a say right up front, I think they have the responsibility to that child.
And I kind of agree with Dick. I don't think government has a role in that, and I don't know how I would explain why something like that would be good for somebody's health. But I believe in a woman's right to choose, and that choice is made by that woman and probably her doctor or health professional.
How is forcing a woman to bear a child, how is it good for a woman's health?
Yes.
It's not good for a woman's health. It's not. Now, we need to do all we can to reduce unwanted pregnancies. We do that through education. We do that through access to birth control. We do that by passing legislation like Debbie and I did that actually allows you to get a whole year's worth of birth control rather than just a month at a time, which is expected to reduce unwanted pregnancies by as much as 20%. You know, the question had to do with choice, and I'm pro-choice. But the question is bigger than that, because it's not just a matter of whether it's legal, it's also a question of whether it's accessible. And too often we're finding that medical providers out here at the coast don't provide these options for women. We don't provide pregnancy termination, you know, we don't provide assisted suicide either. And that means that people that are in these very dire circumstances have to leave the area and find options elsewhere. And that's something that we need to address. Not only the legality of the issue, but the accessibility of the issue.
And because forums are this great opportunity to have this complete mishmash of questions, we're not going to move to roads. Okay, so this is the beauty of how we work these things. So this is your last question, and then you'll have your time to sum up. What will you do for the roads, both state and county, which are badly deteriorating? Many of the roads are not safe. They're not safe for bicycles, but ODOT encourages them to visit. Can we license them, and why not, if the answer is no? There's several questions in there, I appreciate that. License the bikes. License the bikes.
I don't know, I'm a bike rider, so I don't know against that.
Maybe you should focus on the road health.
I think what we need to do is definitely repave 101. It was awful coming down here.
Well, I'm looking forward to our transportation package that we have. That's one of the strongest promises I've ever heard out of so many people in the legislature. We will not leave without it, something like that. And we only can affect the state roads. The counties have their own roads, but we can help them in that sense. And as far as licensing bicycles, I don't really care. It's not. I mean, I think that's fair to do. We've talked about licensing canoes and non-motorized boat, watercraft, etc., and waiting for paddle boards and everything, surfboards to get on there too. But these sorts of ways of funding things are often supported by the users anyway. They'll come to us and say, could you assess us, like the ATV riders assess their own fee so that they can help with the trails in our parks.
Well, look, here in Tillamook County, we got potholes that are so old and familiar, we've given them names. And yes, we've got a special committee that needs to come up with a transportation plan, and yes, we need to pass it. And none of the options are going to be very pretty or very attractive. The problem in a nutshell is that we're driving more fuel-efficient vehicles, and that's good. We're using bicycles and mass transit more, and that's good. We're using vehicles that don't use gasoline, and that's good. And we're collecting less money through gasoline taxes, and that's bad. So we're going to increase the gasoline tax, increase the registration fees, talk about toll roads, talk about taxing bicycles and canoes. Nobody is anxious to do all of those things, but we need a combination that is going to pass in the legislature and also pass when it comes back on likely referral, so that all of you will get to endorse our decision. Hard choices are ahead, but there are also hard issues that we don't, particularly out here at the coast where we need to prepare for that earthquake. Remember I mentioned that at the beginning of the evening? Because money spent now is going to save money later, it's going to save lives later. I talked with one of the members of the Transportation Committee last week, and he said, you know, I noticed that your district has got a lot more road work going on than my district does. And I said, yeah, that's because more of your constituents drive on my roads than my constituents drive on your roads.
It's funny how when we talk about transportation packages, the thought is to asphalt. In the Senate District 5, there are ports, and just as important and opportunities for economic development and huge job growth are our ports, which are part of this transportation package. So I would agree that if it's a priority, and I believe it is, we fund it like a priority and make those tough choices. And it's going to come from a lot of painful areas, whether it's cuts or new taxes or anything else. But you have to work through it, and I think, as Representative Gomberg has indicated, it's a tough session to do. Everybody's not going to be happy, but what we're doing now with just a gas tax isn't enough.
So that wraps up the questions that were specifically directed towards the state positions. I was going to give you your 2 minutes to do your summation, but I would just like to thank you on behalf of AAUW, the Headlight Herald, the college, the audience. You have displayed grace and graciousness to one another, and it is a very refreshing change from what we've been watching on TV. And I'm sure that we all appreciate how you've handled yourselves here this evening. And so we started with Representative Gomberg to begin the evening, so we will start with you, Mr. Anderson, to end.
Well, thank you. And let me say again, thank you for organizing and putting this, and also, I think we're all disappointed that Senator Roblin and certainly Tom Donahue couldn't be with us. We wish him well and get back, because this is a tough time not to be on the campaign trail for Senator Roblin. So, but I guess what I want you to know is I'm an advocate for the coast. I've been an advocate, I'll continue to be an advocate. I'm also so interested and so, hard set on finding and bringing back respect and honor and balance to the state Senate. I'll be a state senator that represents all the people on the coast, we who are retired, young people who are just growing up, as well as, those who are working. I believe that I can make a difference and will make a difference in the Senate. And I would ask you to send me to Salem where I can show you. Thank you.
I would like to thank you for inviting me here this evening. One of the things that I've recently have done is I've joined a choir, and each of us have a voice, and to think your voice is not heard is wrong. You can really affect change, each and every one of us. If we get together as a choir, the music sounds a lot better, and we have a voice. We can make changes, we can make hard changes, and we can be respectful of each other while we're making the changes. So I plan to do that when I'm at the state representative. Please vote for me. I need your help. Thank you.
So, and I do apologize for reading this, but it's been a long day and I wanted to make sure I got all my points in. So I just wanted to let you know that I've been doing this for some time now. And also, in addition to being the elected state representative, I worked as a legislative assistant to 7 different legislators over 16 years, with the last 8 of those 16 years being for this district in its different permutations. So I know the people of this district well and their issues. And I have worked hard for our families and businesses, and I've been part of bringing solutions to the problems and the needs. And some of these results are the Oregon Resilience Plan, which won a prestigious national award and commendation from our president, Obama. And that was a big deal. This plan was built by 169 people. That's a big committee. And they broke into 8 different sectors and they built this plan. And it was a hard job, and Congressman, could you hear that, Mark? Commissioner Lappert was part of I just thought I'd throw that out. He's ready to move on here. But he was part, and he should take a bow for this. He was part of this, the recommendations process of getting this plan out, which is what we've been doing over the last few years. Every session we do a little bit more to try to put this plan into action, and it's my pleasure to do it as inexpensively as possible, if we can. Bringing renewable energy projects to our state, because our transmission system's gonna be down when that thing hits, and it also gets down when we're having storms, so that's a huge deal. If we can, okay, this is really hard. And I told you I'd talk about invasive species, but that will be for another time. And I would recommend that you check my voter pamphlet statement. I've got a lot of things on there too, that there isn't time to do all this. But they do cause problems. And finally, I believe it's my duty to work with all my colleagues, all 89 of them, and I do. I take my party hat off when I walk through that door the second Monday in January when we convene. And so I represent all of you when I'm there. I don't care what your proclivities are, anything. If you're a D or an R, an I or a green or whatever, you're important to me, and I will always be happy to represent you. That thing just really rattles me. So thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight, and also thank you to those that are listening in electronically. I particularly appreciate the hard questions, and I think you can see that honest and decent people can disagree on difficult questions, and that's not because any of us love this state and love the people that live here any less. I think you can see, listing my answers to the questions, I believe in just laying it out, telling you honestly what I believe, and hoping that most of you will agree with me, and also trusting that those of you don't will at least understand how I came to my decision, and will let me know how you feel about it. To that end, earlier today I published some comments about all of the ballot measures that are before us. We didn't talk about 96, Debbie mentioned it, which is going to be the largest commitment to Oregon's veterans in the history of our state. Take a look at 96, which will produce $18 million for Oregon vets and could be matched by as much as $4 billion in federal money for people. So many of our vets are doing well, too many of them are not doing well, more subject to suicide, more subject to health care or mental health issues, homelessness and unemployment. 5,000 Oregon vets don't have a place to sleep tonight. Take a look at measure number 96. It's a remarkable honor to represent all of you, or at least those of you that live south of 3rd Street. I hope that your questions will not end tonight, but that you will continue to ask questions, continue to ask hard questions of all of us, and look for answers, as well as sharing your perspective, because we're all in this together. So thank you so very much.
So we will take a 5-minute break. The candidates' pamphlets are all on the back, as well as some of the other paraphernalia that they've brought. I encourage you to stand up, sit down, fight, 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 go to the bathroom, visit, and then we'll bring our county commissioner